Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Hi, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
Welcome. We're excited because we have a summer topic today, and who doesn't love that? It's a topic that could really be done all year long, I guess. But it felt right because of the month that it is, and so we're kind of excited to have that topic. Before we begin it, though, we do want to recognize a couple of people in places who have been listening to us. So welcome, preschool peeps in Brooklyn, New York. We're excited to have you. Not far from where we are, Brooklyn.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Though very far if you're in the traffic that leads to Brooklyn.
It takes forever to get to Brooklyn, and it's right there. Yeah.
I have a son who lives in Brooklyn. Don't go looking for him. You're not going to find him. He's deep in Brooklyn, and it's like he's close, but he's not close.
Yeah.
So that's Brooklyn. And then around the world, we're super excited to welcome people from South Africa as listeners of this podcast.
Hello.
We see you. We see you in our statistics, South Africa. Thank you so much. Please tell other people to come listen and to do things like check out our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com, because we have other information on there that may be interesting to everybody. And this topic we're hoping is particularly interesting to everybody right now, and that is sand. We're here today to talk about sand. I can't believe we've done this many episodes without a deep discussion about sand. But maybe it was because of the pandemic. We were recording things related to the pandemic for a while because that's what was on everyone's mind. And during the pandemic, sand was sort of sidelined because people were really afraid of the germs and how do we keep this clean and what do we do? And so in some programs, they started to give children little containers of sand.
Yeah.
Right. In some places, the larger collections of sand have come back. In other places, they have not. But I think it's a worthy discussion because it has such benefits to young children that we do want it to come back.
Yeah.
The question is, how do we care for it in a way that makes it clean for everybody, that makes it usable for everybody? Like, what do we do? And these things can apply. I think, Alison, you might agree. These things can apply inside and outside. And a lot of the discussion about cleanliness has to do with outside because that's an area where we have less control.
True.
Right.
True. Yeah.
So, right. But let's start with the benefits. Why am I saying to you all, bring it on back? Bring back your sand tables. Bring back your outdoor sand pits or boxes or whatever you have out there. Sand is so important in the growth and development of young children. And one of the reasons, I'll start and then you can take over some of those reasons, Alison. But one of the reasons is one I want to say right up front, because otherwise I'm either going to forget to say it or forget the word. One of the reasons that we want children to be in sand is because they're developing we know there are now 7 senses. And this is one of the senses that's been added to the list of 5. They are developing their proprioceptive sense, which is their understanding of where their limbs are in space.
Yeah.
When they are writing in sand, pushing sand, manipulating sand with their hands and their arms and their fingers, they actually can feel where their limbs are in space. So it helps them to develop that sense. And this is sort of how it works. If you're thinking, what do you mean they don't know where their limbs are in space? As adults, right? As an adult, if you said to me right now, where are your feet? I could tell you without looking for my feet. If you said, where are your hands? I could tell you without looking for my hands. Young children can't do that. That's why when you say to young children, where are your feet? They stop and they look.
Yeah.
If you say to young children, their hands are not like right in front of them, and you say, where are your hands? If their hands, let's say, are on their laps, and you say, where are your hands? They'll lean over and they'll look because they don't have that sense fully developed yet. We need them to have that sense fully developed so that they can do things as, elementary school, middle school, high school adults that require us to have that sense. Think about something like, I'm just going to go to adulthood. Think about something like driving. If you don't know where your limbs are in space,
Oh God,
how are
that
you
would be very
driving,
difficult. Yeah, yes, that would
right?
be very difficult. Yeah, and driving is
And
something we do without even thinking, right? And it's because we have
right,
that sense. Yeah,
we
yeah,
have that sense, but young children don't have that sense. And actually
yeah,
manipulating sand, the feel of it, the going through the fingers of it, that
yeah,
other materials don't do in the same way, that
yeah.
helps them. And I just want to throw this in, Alison, before you take over and start talking about other benefits. I'm talking about real sand, like natural sand. I'm not talking about kinetic sand. I love kinetic sand.
Oh,
I
I
think it's
love
very
kinetic sand.
relaxing, right? Very relaxing to manipulate kinetic sand. Great fun, but it doesn't count as your sand requirement in the environmental rating scales or other measures of high quality. They mean sand that's not kinetic.
Sand.
They mean
Yeah, I
regular old
regular
sand.
sand. I was going to say in terms of this. Sorry, there's a bug flying.
She's like
Pro-
on YouTube waving right now.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
About this, and I forgot the word, the proprioceptive sense. I never say it right.
No, I will read it again. Proprioceptive.
Proprioceptive. This is why when you are at the beach or in the sand table, children are saying, "Can you bury me in the sand?" Because they feel like when they're fully buried in the sand, they have to feel like, oh, my hand is over here, and the sand helps them feel. This is why in my class we have one that's indoors, a sandbox indoors, and they are always like burying their one hand and then like popping it through, and they're like, because it helps them learn, like they're moving their fingers under there, and it's so they're like, oh, are my fingers still here? They are still here. Oh, boop, and then they pop like the kids are always doing. That's why they're doing that. And like, yeah, when you're on vacation, you're like, oh my goodness, I have to bury you again. That's why, though, it's teaching them so much. Whereas I think for adults, we get buried and it's just like, oh, cool and relaxing. For them, there's so much going on there when they're buried in them. And they will ask to get buried over and over and over.
They
again.
do. They do.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It does give them a sense of where all their limbs are, I guess, to be buried in the sand like that. And it's something that, I mean, I can't even imagine anymore what it feels like to not quite know where your limbs are.
I don't know.
So
yeah, because once you have that sense, you don't remember, like, so yeah, I don't know. I imagine it would be kind of scary in a way. Like, I would like to know where my hands and feet are at all times.
I don't know.
Or maybe it'd be freeing. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I think going along, this topic of getting buried in the sand and feeling the sand goes along with like they're learning about textiles and how the sand feels different than the grass, and how the sand feels different than soil that you're in the garden, or how it feels different than water. There's like a whole like feeling of the textiles. And there's some children that are very sensitive to feeling textiles. They don't like it, or it doesn't feel good. And so giving them sand to experiment in, I think really helps them develop their tactile abilities. How does this feel? What does this feel like against my hand? It's gritty. How does soil feel? It's not as gritty, but still dirty. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different tactile, the sense of touch that helps with sand.
I wonder if we're going to talk sense of touch, and this just sort of came to mind that we should really give this disclaimer. And that disclaimer is sand is for children over 12 months old. It is not for under 12 months old. So if you're listening to us and you're working with children or raising children who are under 12 months, no sand. They can manipulate water.
Yes.
But no sand. So we're going to just have that disclaimer up on YouTube. Sand is for children over 12 months old, not under. And I'll take the disclaimer down in a minute and put it back up later. But I want to make sure to say it for the people who are not on YouTube.
Yeah.
Again, under 12 months, water only. Over 12 months, both sand and water. And we may talk about the benefits of water another day. But right now we're talking about sand, right? So you were saying about their hands. And it's important to also mention fine motor development. Sometimes when I talk about sand and we're talking about fine motor development, people think about the pinching of the sand, or when when children try to pick up every grain of sand between their fingers sometimes.
Yeah.
And yes, that does help to develop fine motor because they're bringing their fingers together. Even more importantly is when they're doing things like, let's say you wet the sand a little bit and they're pushing the sand, that helps to build muscles in the hands and the fingers.
Yes.
We want to have children do things like write shapes in sand or attempt to write letters in sand. That sand needs to be a little bit moist to provide resistance so that they're building those muscle groups that are in their hands and their fingers.
Yeah. I also think it builds not just those, but the ones up your arm too. If they're filling up sand buckets and then lifting them, that's your hand muscles, but it's also your arm muscles. And then dumping them. Like it takes a lot of strength. I mean, it's easy for us to fill up a bucket, but for them, that's quite a load. That's quite heavy for them. So if they're doing that back and forth, even like a shovel of especially the wet sand that's heavy, that takes a lot of strength in not just your hands, but your arms too. So you're building muscles all over for that, just from sand.
Yes.
Such a simple activity to build so many muscles, make them strong.
Also, let's not forget that ordinarily children are not alone playing in sand. When children have sand available, it tends to attract multiple children. Sometimes it's just a matter of one of the people in the class going over there and then everybody starts to walk over, but it tends to attract a lot of children, which means that there are social emotional benefits to the use of sand because it's an area that has limited space with a lot of interest. You have a certain amount of materials in there maybe that they need to do things like pass back and forth, take turns using, and some of the
space alone, like I'm building here, this is my space, the sharing of the space, because at least in my classroom, we just have one of those discovery tables. It's not very big. So you do have to discuss with the people next to you. I'm going to build here, or we can build together here, a lot of social work going on in there.
And while they're doing that, they're like, if you have measuring cups in there and measuring spoons, we can teach them about measurement. They should be pouring the sand. That builds their gross motor muscles and coordination along with fine motor. So there's so much learning that takes place using sand. And if the children don't have sand or have enough sand to do all that learning, it's very hard to replace that.
Well, I feel like there's nothing really else that can replace that, right? I mean, we're saying water, and you'll learn some things with water, but I feel like sand, there's just so much more that they're learning, I feel sometimes.
I think that there's
provide both.
Unless they're under 12 months. Let's do the disclaimer again. If they're under 12 months, water only. So, I understand the concerns though. Again, COVID-19 brought it to the forefront. I think we always kind of felt like sand was maybe a little bit yucky, but the germ phobia that exists, the fear of the germs that exist is real. And so there are ways, there are ways to try to prevent issues with sand, particularly outdoor sand, and then ways to deal with the ongoing maintenance of the sand. So let's talk about some of those things. And if you're on YouTube, you're going to see me look to my right. I have a couple of screens and I have tips on another screen. So I'm going to go ahead and look over to my right. One of the steps, which just was something I never allowed anyway, but I don't know, maybe I'm alone here. One of the pieces of advice that you'll find all over the place about using sand is that you have to keep all food, drinks, and anything like that away from the sand. Any food, any drink should not be near the sand. My experience is that doesn't happen often in early childhood programs, that there would be food and drink near the sand they're playing with, but I can see that happening at home. I can see if you have a sand, let's say you have a sandbox in your yard or on your deck or something. I can see children grabbing a snack and bringing it over to where that sandbox is. So you need to make a rule. We don't bring drinks and we don't bring food to where we're playing with sand. If you are at the shore or on a beach, in New Jersey, we call it the shore. If you're at the shore or on a beach, You know, you should really make sure that if they're going to be eating, it's not near where they're going to be playing with the sand and digging and stuff, because it does attract critters.
It
Whatever
does,
may be out there.
especially the ones that you don't want there, like bees and ants. You know, yeah. So
yeah. There is, though, a preventative bug spray that we thought was kind of cool. Do you have that in front of you, Allison? If not,
I don't, but I can get it up.
I'll say it.
Oh, you have it. You have it all. Yeah.
Yeah, it says to spray non-toxic child and pet safe bug spray once per week. So 1 time a week, non-toxic child and pet safe bug spray. Also, this was the fascinating part. Also, sprinkle cinnamon into the sand. It smells good, and insects don't like cinnamon.
Yes. Ants especially do not like cinnamon. And it messes with their sense of smell, which is how ants get around. So if you, and they don't like the way it feels when they crawl on it. So I know this because I had an ant problem in my apartment, and I'm telling you, the cinnamon worked. Okay. But yeah, they don't like it. And it smells good, and it's not going to harm the children to play, to have cinnamon mixed in with their sand, you know? So
I'd be sprinkling all kinds of cinnamon in there if I had young children right now. I'd be like, okay, get me the cinnamon.
Big boxes of it. Yeah.
You also, if you're going to have something with sand in it in your program or at home, you have to be willing to change the sand on a regular basis. And I know that can be a sticking point for some places, but if you're going to commit to having this, then you need to know this sand is going to have to be changed on a regular basis. And then to disinfect it, it says to create a 50-50 white vinegar water solution in the spray bottle to cover the top layer of sand, and then you rake and shovel it through all the sand. So it's 50-50 white vinegar and water in a spray container. You spray the top layer and then rake it through.
That's pretty cool.
Of course, if you have a cover, if you're able to cover it, you're of course going to keep it covered.
I highly recommend covering it, even if it's just with a tarp, because you're going to have animals go in there and do their business, and you don't want that. Because that's what animals do.
Kitty litter box.
Yes, it is.
Kitty litter box.
Yes, it is. And there's some states I worked in where they eliminated the sand boxes because of that reason. The outdoor sand boxes because of that reason.
So in our state, sand used to be an acceptable ground cover. Like you could have your whole playground could be sand, you know. And I worked in a place that had that, and they changed it. But if you already had sand, and I think maybe if you were in a nonprofit setting, you were allowed to keep the sand even when they changed that law. And a lot of places kept it because it's so expensive to replace it. And I happened to work in a place where sand, that was our ground cover, sand. And I can't even think about.
I know.
Okay. Anyway.
I know.
I know. And then it says to rake and sift the sand. We used to do this. We used to do things to keep it clean, by the way. And we had a custodial staff that would rake through and all that. But it says to have a special rake just for your sandbox and rake it on a regular basis to remove debris.
Yeah, that's not something I thought of. I figure you have a rake, you use it. Like, it doesn't matter that it goes in soil or in sand, but that's really quite smart because now you're not,
isn't it,
cross-contaminating, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Like
you don't want to cross-contaminate.
Yeah.
Let's say, and let's see, bottom liner. If you have a homemade wooden sandbox, you can put a bottom liner in.
Yes, so you don't want the bugs going up, right?
From the bottom, from the dirt. So any kind of liner you can put in is good. And I do remember, by the way, if you're all skeeved out by where I used to work, we did have a liner out there to keep things from coming to the bottom. So we did have a liner put in. Let's see, what else? And make sure you're getting the right kind of sand. I think that's it. Make sure you're getting the right kind of sand. You want playground sand. Otherwise, it has too much dust. It's not good for the children.
The dust?
Yeah, it's very dusty. Yeah.
I always thought it was because like sand that you use for like say landscaping purposes, not for play purposes. I always thought it had more gravelly feel to it. I didn't realize it was dusty. That might be it too. I don't know. Yeah.
One time years ago, I made the mistake of buying the wrong kind of sand for the sand box that we had in the classroom. And I didn't realize. And so they go to dump it in and there was just this cloud of dust. like Pigpen on the Peanuts?
Yes, I've
Would walk
had that
around with a
happen
cloud of dust.
before.
So there was just a cloud of dust that came from the sand, and it was the wrong, when we looked at the thing, it was the wrong type of sand.
The wrong kind
It
of
was for
sand.
something
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So be very careful about that. I know
Yeah.
it was kind of we had to we were like, oh no, because it's really bad, especially for children who may have asthma.
Yeah, breathing that in is not good. And
No.
then it settles around
Not
the
good for
classroom.
anybody.
Yeah, it's not good for anyone.
Not good for anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, we hope you'll go back. And if you haven't brought the sand back, please do bring it back.
Yes.
Keep this episode, tag it somewhere, put it in your favorites so that you remember what you can do to keep it disinfected and clean. I believe Allison jotted down, we have to talk about water in the future because that does apply to children under 12 months.
You know me so well. I did.
I do.
I did write that down.
I could be looking all over the place, and yet I know Alan Allison is writing something down. So sand, remember, 12 months and over. And if you're thinking, I don't know, my child is 13 months, 14 months, should they be using sand? Yeah, they should. You just need to supervise. You need to supervise. And one of the things we need to teach young children is it doesn't go in your mouth.
Yeah.
Give them something they can put in their mouth, but maybe not food because we don't want the food around the sand.
No food there. Yeah.
No. And be sure, folks, to check out all the things we have on our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. Find us on Facebook. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your loved ones to come on and be one of our preschool peeps. That after all this time, we're still putting out information that might have you go, aha, like cinnamon.
Yes.
Okay.
I know.
At least it made us say, aha.
I know. I was just going to say, even us as hosts, we still have that aha moment of like, I never thought of that. Yeah.
Okay. Preschool peeps, go enjoy summer, and we will catch you next time on the podcast.
Bye, peeps.
Bye.